really interesting deal of matchmaking is we have La Pantera, Antonina Shevchenko, taking on the Queen of Violence, Ariane Lipski. Matt, for the Shevchenko sisters, it has to be weird. I mean, if we could somehow get ourselves on a regional promotion, and I fought before you, and I get brutally knocked out, I bet you're probably going to be flying high with confidence because Craig got knocked out. But overall,
I'm like, I can't do any worse.
It's got to be really weird having Antonina Shevchenko, being Valentina, the champ of the division, your sister's fighting in the same division. And oh, by the way, you're the co-main event. You own the belt. And your sister's fighting the former KSW star, Ariane Lipski. Matt, for Lipski, when she came into the UFC, I was really excited because we've seen some great fighters coming out of KSW. We've seen the Karolina Kowalkiewicz. We've seen Jan Blachowicz, your now light heavyweight champ. So there was a lot of buzz surrounding Lipski. And they gave her pretty tough tests out of the gate. They gave her Joanne Calderwood. She loses that one. She loses to Molly McCann. She beats Isabella De Padua coming in on short notice. Isabella De Padua. And then Luana Carolina in that fight, I thought, well, hey, the gal with the dreadlocks, she has a really good game plan. And I was looking forward to that fight for sure. And Ariane Lipski just went, I don't know, sicko mode, I guess. I mean, it was a crazy performance. It was what we always expected out of Ariane Lipski in the UFC. And opposite her, for Antonina Shevchenko, she comes into the UFC off a win on Contender Series. She beats Ji-Yeon Kim, a tough out. She loses split decision to Roxanne Modafferi. She beats Lucia Pudzilova, who was oddly fighting down from 35 to 25, and it didn't go well for Pudzilova. And then she loses to Katlyn Chookagian in
a surprising way.
Katlyn Chookagian's maybe one of the best performances I've seen out of Chookagian in the UFC so far. I think it was less to do about Chookagian, even though, again, she was coming off a loss to V. Shevchenko. Then she was taking on A. Shevchenko. And all of a sudden, she started taking her down, which was just crazy.
Antonina Shevchenko must have the Nate Diaz thought, like, oh, so you're a wrestler now. Because that's what Katlyn Chookagian turned into. And she was just consistently trip takedowns. Here's the weird thing, too. I assumed if Shevchenko was going to win that fight, like a lot of people probably keep it on the feet. She has good Muay Thai. I thought she would at least have a little bit of success on the feet when those two were fighting, but she never really even seemed in the fight against Chookagian, and that's unfortunate to say. And it was weird matchmaking, too, for all intents and purposes, because it's odd that you have, you know, the former title challenger. Yes, she lost to the champ, but I'd argue she did better than most people who fight Valentina Shevchenko. It's not saying much. She still got TKO'd, but then you just make her fight Valentina's sister, Just very odd by the UFC. I kind of get it if you're trying to set up like a weird sibling rivalry, but anyways, I just didn't think Antonina was ready for that fight. I understand she is the older of the two Shevchenko sisters, so you do have to start giving her those upper echelon fighters at a certain point, but I really doubt she's ever going to fight Valentina, and I don't think Valentina's ever going to lose that belt, so it's just really weird to know where the ceiling of Antonina Shevchenko might end up, because at worst case, she might just become a number one contender, who then, okay, if you can beat Antonina, then you get to fight the final boss, Valentina. So it's a weird position for you to be in the same weight class. Like, I would force Craig to cut down in weight or make him stay heavier, kind of like what DC and Cain Velasquez decided to do. They were like, hey, we're about the same size. You can make 205. I might be able to, but I can't. So we'll see. They didn't even come to that agreement, though. I think Lipski's takedowns and top control, she can do a lot of what Chookagian was able to do. I understand Chookagian is a very high-level black belt under John Danaher or Renzo Gracie, so she doesn't really get the credit in her grappling that she deserves. If Lipski is able to get top pressure on Antonina Shevchenko, she's going to really be able to damage her. I like the elbows and the ground and pound from Lipski on top. And Shevchenko's grappling, it's weird because if you go back to the
fight against Roxanne Modafferi.
Thank you. If you go back to the fight against Roxanne Modafferi, she does look really good. And the Lucy Pudilova fight, that's the one that I couldn't remember. The Pudilova fight, her grappling was phenomenal. She was the one going for the takedown. She was really fishing for the submission. So it's weird how, and we do see this from a lot of fighters, she's great in that top position, but once she is taken down and kind of has to be forced into a defensive grappling mindset, it leaves a lot to be desired. So if Antonina can't get up from the bottom against Lipski's going to go to work all day. She'll be able to land a lot of ground and pound in heavy volume too. If Shevchenko can keep the fight standing, not that Lipski can't match her on the feet, but I would give Shevchenko a slight advantage.
Huge advantage.
Oh, huge advantage, fair. I would definitely give her a advantage because Lipski on the feet, she does do well with her volume, so she can steal rounds that way if you're not kind of paying attention to your own output, but this is a compelling fight, and they are very closely matched up.
Yeah, and it's kind of a surprise because Antonina Shevchenko at 36 years old, you got Lipski at 26. And Matt, I mean, I look at it this way. You've got Antonina Shevchenko that has an almost unblemished kickboxing record. She's a Muay Thai champion, kickboxing champ, and Ariane Lipski, the former KSW Flyweight champ, coming in here, you would expect her, if she's going to get the win, she has to employ a complete game. Because if Ariane Lipski comes in and decides that she's Muay Thai ready like Jorge Gurgel, it's not going to go well for her at all.
It's not, but here's the problem with Antonina Shevchenko's kickboxing. It's good. It's not great. It's not like she has an Israel Adesanya background. Like, Antonina Shevchenko can get outstruck in a MMA fight. I don't think she has this, like, wicked striking to the point where, oh, she's like Yair Rodriguez. She has good volume. She doesn't have great power. And that's always a weird thing, especially in the women's flyweight division, because there seems to be a very big imbalance between fighters who have power and fighters who don't. You think of Jessica Andrade, you think of Valentina. Like, when they catch you clean, you're going down. I don't care who you are. With Shevchenko, she's a good striker, but if you're reckless, you can walk through a lot of those strikes because she isn't putting everything behind them. I'm not saying that I think Lipski's going to decide that, oh, I'm, Bangkok ready. We're going to go out there and try to fight Antonina Shevchenko like I'm Gokhan Saki. But I don't think that this is 100% where, for as long as it's on the ground, Lipski has to be winning, and as long as it's on the feet, Shevchenko has to be winning. I do think that there's a little bit of give and take in both those scenarios. And again, it's just so hard to pick because both fighters can kind of do a little bit of everything.
And I mean, it was a bit of a surprise too, and you might have seen the graphic pop up on the broadcast. It was about the last 14 women's fights, or in the last 14 women's fights in the UFC, the favorites had won. We had Ashley Yoder catching as an underdog last weekend, and I mean, that was a fight where back and forth, but Yoder really did dominate. And I mean, in both of the fights on that card, you had Murata getting a win as well. Bit of a surprise in that card overall. So I look at this one, Antonina Shevchenko coming in. She opened up minus 110. They both open minus 110. Pick 'em odds. Shevchenko right now at a minus 157 on best fight odds. For Lipski, a plus 131. And I mean, if you look at the total votes on Tapology, I'll say it the entire time, pretty early, but at a 500 total votes, 71% going Lipski, 70% picking her to win a decision. So the odds open up par. People are putting the money on Shevchenko, but the fans and the people that are taking the time, those 500 lovely souls over at Tapology that have really put their minds forward, are going Lipski. Are you going with the popular vote on Tapology, or are you agreeing with the best fight oddsers?
So after how bad my last weekend was, I feel like I need to preface my picks by this. Don't put money on this fight. It's just not worth it. It is really much a... It is very much a... If Antonina can keep it standing, keep it at range, use a lot of her leg kicks, and kind of take some of the explosiveness out of Lipski, or can Lipski go out there... Really, this comes down to, do we underrate Katlyn Chookagian's ground game as much as I think people are? Is Antonina actually a decent grappler in her own right? It's just on that night, she was against someone who, yes, very much known for her distance strikes and her... But that night she decided, I'm going to be the grappler because I have such a good background in it. Or does Antonina Shevchenko really have a problem off of her back and with her takedown defense? So because there's that big of a question mark, I find it hard to pick Shevchenko, but I am slightly siding with her to win by decision. I know it's not a popular pick. I know it's not a, we're not bringing anything you probably can't already tell yourself, but it's just Shevchenko. The size, I do think, will play a bit of a part. She's the bigger physically fighter than Ariane Lipski, so if she is able to use some of that size and strength to her advantage, she'll be able to defend a few takedowns, and then from that point, if she can do that, get Lipski tired, and then start to unload on her own striking. But again, I can't say that I'm overly confident in that pick.
And I mean, yeah, it's hard to be confident with either, because for Ariane Lipski, look at the fight that she had against Isabella De Padua, and man, that was way too close of a fight that you would want to have. De Padua was the much smaller fighter, and she was able to control the grappling for the most part. I know it was a unanimous decision win for Ariane Lipski, but Antonina Shevchenko, as Corey Anderson would say, well, there's levels to this game. So I look at the fight that she had against Luana Carolina, and it was a tough fight where, who do you really pick in that one? Ariane Lipski looked great in that one. The knee bar submission was great. I really do think that there's value with Ariane Lipski, and I mean, I see that the odds are slowly going the way of Shevchenko. Maybe somebody made a mistake and they wanted to go with Valentina and they accidentally clicked on Antonina. But overall, again, Matt, I have Ariane Lipski. I think this is a very interesting fight. And in terms of seeding in that flyweight division, it really pays dividends for either one of these women to get a win. So, Matt, you're siding with Antonina Shevchenko in this one. I've got Ariane Lipski. I'm really looking forward to this card because we have the other Shevchenko. We got Valentina Shevchenko defending her belt against Jennifer Maia. We got Deiveson Figueiredo taking on Alex Perez in the main event. You're going to want to keep it locked in with Fight Name Picks, Matt, as we always say. Let's get into it.